Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash-flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. We are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. Today we have Casey Gray with us. Casey is the founder of the award-winning sustainable building company, The Conscious Builder, the host of the Conscious Builder podcast and the Conscious Builder show on YouTube, and the former co-host of the Conscious Living podcast. So I see a theme in there being conscious building, conscious living. Really excited to have Casey on here to talk a bit about sustainable building. So Casey, thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gabe. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we like to hear kind of how people got into their, into real estate, into the track they're on right now. So why don't you take us to your story? How'd you get started in the first place?
Real estate, I guess I was brought there by construction. So I've been in construction since I finished high school. Essentially, that I went into the trades and became a licensed carpenter and been around real estate and doing work for my previous employer before I went on my own and his own buildings. So that's essentially what brought me to real estate. And I'm buying my mom's house from her at the time when I think I was 20, my first home. Bought a couple more homes after that. They were all single family homes that I turned into duplexes.
Oh,
and
nice.
That was quite a few years ago now. I ended up selling them to kind of put the money into the business and expand the conscious building side, which was passive house, which was, I always tell people, was the best and the worst decision that I made. It did set us up in the business for success. But obviously if I would have held on to those buildings longer term, it would have worked out a lot better. And since then I'm back into real estate again in the multifamily.
Yep. That seems to be a theme with people who at once had rentals and then they sold them and then they're like, damn it, I wish I didn't sell. But
yeah,
it got to you to where you are today. So there's no looking back. Looks like you guys are doing a lot of good things with the Conscious Builder. So why don't we jump into that? I mean, you don't hear a lot of people talking about sustainable building, and it's something that's kind of, very important, especially when it comes to the environment. So take us to why someone would want to build a sustainable building outside of the obvious. They want to save the environment. What are the benefits of being a conscious builder?
So the way I look at it, like everything we do is custom. We're not doing spec homes for anything. But when we approach it, we work with our clients and we give them the information so that they can make a conscious decision, because I'm not here to say do it this way or do it that way. Everybody has different needs and wants and amount of money to spend and so forth, right? So that would be the first thing. But ultimately, the goal is always on health and comfort. And by default, you end up with an efficient home. Obviously, there'll be some energy savings, and that savings will depend on how much energy costs are and where you live and what the climate zone is that you're in and so forth. But the biggest thing I think right now is really about health. We spend more time than ever indoors. Even before this whole, the world changed 2 years ago, for the most part, everyone went from their house to a vehicle of some sort, to another building, back to the vehicle and back to their house. Like they spend very little time outside, but they don't put a lot of emphasis on, is my home, is the area where I'm spending, 87% of my time actually healthy? And that's where I think the biggest impact is. And I think that really starts to hit home for people when they have kids. And that's why their kids have like the organic natural pillows and mattresses and blankets and all that stuff. But we don't think about it for ourselves until that point. Or you run into a mold issue or something like that. Like when you build to a better standard, when you build to passive house standards or net zero, like here in Canada is a new standard, or any standard that puts a lot of emphasis on making the building tight and really looking at it as a system, right? It's a science, building science. Then you can actually start to get real benefits long-term, which I hope in the near future will actually show a better ROI when you go to sell that house on the market. And we're doing a test project right now to see if that actually helps. We're going to market it that way.
Nice. No, I love it. And I like that you kind of focus on the health side of things. Sustainable buildings, obviously the environmental impact is tremendous and it's great that you're helping the environment, but I've always been curious on, there has to be other benefits if you're making a sustainable building. So you're saying that a lot of the benefits is just your day-to-day. Well, I guess I'm having a hard time visualizing what the actual changes are. So can you give me an example of what would be a specific change in a multifamily, in a single family, that you would make when you're doing a construction that would impact a person's health?
So the biggest thing we do is we focus on the envelope, and then we mechanically ventilate the home. So most home, like you get this a lot, like in Florida where there's hot, humid, like you walk into a house, you can smell the mildew, right? You can smell the mold just because it's humid all the time.
My college dorm, the minute I went in there, we got it because it was Seattle. So it was expensive and this one was cheap, but I was like, there's definitely mold in here. So I feel that.
We can solve that. And the way you solve that is by focusing on making the building airtight. And this is where people, if you don't know, you start to get confused. It's like, well, doesn't my house need to breathe? And the answer is yes, but you want your house to breathe like we breathe, like through our lungs. You don't want to breathe through your skin, right? So you need to think of your walls of your building as a skin, and you want to be able to perspire through your skin. So you want moisture. If moisture builds up, you want it to be able to dry toward either one direction, towards the interior or towards the exterior, but you don't want air to be traveling through that. What you want to do is actually mechanically ventilate that through an HRV or an ERV, which depends on where your climate is. But essentially what that does is that it brings fresh air into the building 24/7, but it gets preconditioned by the air that's leaving the building, and it's balanced, right? So you don't have all the air being sucked in through your leaky holes in the wall where there could be mold, where there could be mildew, where who knows what else could be other fire retardants in the insulation. There could be mouse poop, rat poop, whatever else is in the wall assemblies, right? You want to avoid sucking that onto the house. And what happens when you turn on a kitchen range hood or a bathroom fan, you're sucking all of that stuff into your home. If you live in the city and there's a lot of pollution, you're sucking all of that into your house as well. So you want to bring fresh air that gets filtered into your house and get rid of stale air 24/7. And the only way to do that is make your house airtight and to install an HRV and an ERV. And obviously there's a whole lot of other things that need to be considered, but that's the basic principle is to focus on those things.
Yep. That, living up here in Seattle, that hits a nerve with us because black mold is definitely a thing up here. We have a lot of issues with moisture in our buildings. So I'm thinking about this. This sounds awesome. I would love to build. It makes a lot of sense when you're building, new construction. You want to make it airtight. How about people, investors who've already purchased multifamily units and they're older? Maybe they were built in the 50s, the 60s. How would they go about implementing something like this? And what would the cost that they're looking at be?
This is where it gets a little bit trickier because it's hard to make an ROI for it on the real estate investment side, because especially if your tenants are paying their bills, like why would you make the building more efficient? I think where it is that once you make a building more efficient and just smell fresh, right, and actually be fresh, not just like air fresheners, you'll end up getting people who want to stay longer. Yep. You'll find better clients and you can charge more for that. Where we haven't been able to do this, but we did run numbers on projects. I have some partners where our goal was to actually rent out the units all inclusive. So heat, electricity, like everything included, but we would make the building more efficient. So we could charge more for the unit because they know that they don't have any bills other than their cell phone and internet if they want for that, right? But we would cover everything else. So our net operating income would actually increase the more we could reduce the heating demand and the cooling demand, and electricity and all that, right? So then there's actually a benefit to it. So then you could start to see an ROI and we could see the numbers, and we're going to do it on a building, but and we put an offer in on it, but we ended up backing out because the environmental assessment for the site didn't come back that great. So we didn't want to get into that. But the numbers were actually making a lot of sense when we ran the numbers. So unfortunately, I don't have a real life example, but that would be the only way, like as an investor, that you can probably get it. I think it comes down to a lot of the times is just what type of product do you want to put out there? What do you want to put your name behind? Right. If you're just trying to make as much money as possible, it might not make sense. But if you want to put out something that you're proud about and you want to, give your tenants something healthy to live in, you want to attract the young families, this could be a way that you do it. to get those families that are actually thinking about those types of things. And I know that there's families out there, like the younger generations are thinking that way. My sister just had a baby, like before her unit, before where she's at now, there were serious mold issues that she was messaging me about. I'm like, you just got to get out of there. Like get out of the place. And she was about to have a baby too. Right. So it's like, you can't be breathing that stuff in. Right. So you find a place that's better. Right. And if you're already above the game as a property owner, you could attract those people, and there's people that are willing to pay more for that. Yep.
No, I mean, that's the first thing that kind of comes to my mind when I ask that, is just, I'm all about having less headache when it comes to, investing in real estate, and having a tenant that stays there longer because they don't have issues, because they're not smelling mold, because they don't have to call you every few months. In my mind, that's a better ROI than actually making more money. So it makes a lot of sense to me. You've talked about conversions, since we're on that subject of, converting things. You were talking about, you converted single family to duplexes back when you first got into it. I know you sold them. That's tough, but you did the conversions, which is really interesting because, I know a lot, especially here in Seattle and Tacoma, they've rezoned many of the areas to allow for a little bit higher density. People are thinking about putting ADUs, maybe doing conversions like that. What are some of the specifics that you looked at when you started considering, converting a single family into duplex?
So the first thing I was looking at is, can I add a second entrance easily? Or is there already a second entrance that I could easily block off from the other unit, right? That's usually the toughest thing, especially here where we deal with really cold winters. We have to think about frost. If we have to get into a basement and we have to put a door, we have to put windows below grade, it gets into more insulation to make sure that there's not frost getting under the footings if you have to dig down and so forth, because you have a deeper window well, or because you have to put an entrance into a basement, whatever it may be. So that was the first thing I looked into. And the second thing would be the heating and cooling. If I could separate if it was easy to separate the area, the zones, meaning like if I have one ductwork
and seal it.
Put a wall up, but also if I could have separate heating systems, right? If there's just one furnace, for example, a forced air furnace, I can't use that for two units because of fire and so forth. And then technically it's going to be too large for another unit. So I'd have to factor that into my costs and so forth. If it's already an old unit, then it's got to be ripped out anyways. That's usually in the price when you're purchasing it. And then I'd be looking in to figure out how I could separate that, which was usually a boiler at the time. And then I put an HRV in to ventilate the space. But I didn't know as much about building science back then when I started that. That was before
the learning process.
That was almost 20 years at this point. But
nice. I love it. So I'm assuming things like split levels probably work well for this, or
yeah, they did. I did have one split level. I found a lot of older houses, at least where we are, they would typically have like your main front door, and then you'd have a side door that would come in like halfway through the landing going down to the basement. So you're able to kind of separate, or it would be close to like lining up with the stairs going down to the basement. So you could like separate or make that like a common shared entrance that gets down to the basement. Like in one unit, for example, I had the door to the basement unit would go down the stairs, and it was a common hallway that would go to the shared laundry room, but then they could go into their own unit. And then the main unit was the front door. That is how they got into it. So just simple things like that. If you have to get into reconfiguring a whole lot of things, like obviously your budget's going to go right out the window. It's tough though here in Ottawa, at least now. Like I was doing a lot of the work myself, but the properties are so much, and obviously everything's getting more expensive these days, is that it's hard to do too much work without being behind by the time you refinance. Like if you're doing the BRRRR model or something like that, right? By the time you refinance and try to pull your money back out, it's tough to pull it all out.
Yeah. I've heard Toronto, Ottawa, the Eastern Coast, Canadian cities you guys are experiencing double-digit growth, which is it's good, but it can be bad. There's good and bad to that.
Yeah, it's good if you have a bunch of properties, I guess you want to offload, but if you're looking to buy properties, it's not good.
All right. Well, I just checked the clock. We have gone through our 15 minutes, but before we jump into the quick question round, I do want to ask, what is next for you guys at Conscious Builders?
We're continuing with everything that we're doing. Obviously on the custom home and renovation side, we got tons of work locked in, more work than we ever had. The other thing that we're focusing on is Conscious Builder Academy. So any contractors out there looking to build passive homes or high performance homes of any sort, we're building an academy for that. I'm essentially building that for who I was, 15 years ago or 12 years ago, sort of thing. Like I knew enough to know that I didn't know that much and was starting out the business and running into all sorts of issues. So that's what that whole academy is being built for, is for contractors, right? We kind of serve the homeowners on one side, and then the academy is going to be to help other contractors, first of all, like build superior businesses and then build superior homes as well.
Perfect, man. I love it. I always, I like to hear people making courses because, learning from university is good, but learning from someone who's actually out there doing it, that is 10 times better in my opinion. Yeah. So if you're
lost lots of money, so I'll help them save that money.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, it is time to jump into the quick question round. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. It starts with books, with actually any form of education. That was a hard one to say. So give me 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and one for real estate specific.
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. So if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
General life wisdom. You said it doesn't just have to be books. It can be courses too.
Could be course, could be, anything.
So the biggest thing that changed my life was Tony Robbins events. That was a catalyst. It kind of led me down all sorts of different paths in all aspects of life, business, relationships, marketing, like everything. So highly recommend that. In terms of real estate, I haven't read real estate books recently. So all the books that are top of my head are other books. But I do want to share a book though.
Let's hear it. He's reaching behind, grabbing a book from his shelf. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Here
Changing World Order, Ray Dalio's new book. Definitely recommend this. That really changes the way, if you really want to understand what's going on in the world, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I read.
Which is going to affect real estate.
Yeah, definitely. I read his The Principles book, but I haven't jumped into that one. I've heard good things about it though, so I will have to pick that up. All right. So Ray Dalio and then Tony Robbins events. Again, I haven't gone to one, but I've heard really good things, but 2 really good recommendations. So leads us to the next question. This one is for your younger self. So if you could go back to the KC who had, no experience in real estate, no experience in construction, maybe he was just considering being a carpenter, go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Be careful of all of the hidden fees.
That's good.
And understand what you're actually paying, right? Because that's what really hurt me on some of the real estate stuff I did younger, is not understanding all the fees. And even nowadays, like now I know to ask the right questions, but when I'm looking to refinancing, I'm asking people and brokers questions, and so many of them do not give me the answers that I'm looking for. And I can tell now. And even I just went through this recently and I went to refinance, like, oh yeah, we can make it work at 1% or 1% fee, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but it came at like 2.5% fee and a higher interest rate. It was going to cost me like $40,000 to refinance. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This is what I was trying to figure out before. But at least now I know to ask those questions and I know how to dig into it and actually read these documents.
You're the first person. We've done 200 something episodes. You're the first person to say, watch out for fees. But that, I like that, because that is a good piece of advice, because fees, especially when you're buying real estate, they jump out of nowhere. I mean, you got to think, especially for people going into commercial, look out for your inspection fees. You're talking about environmental reports, physical buildings, all of those inspections, they add up. It'll tens of thousands of dollars if you're getting into the bigger commercial real estate. So watch out for fees. That's a really good piece of advice. Brings us to the next one. That is for habits. Habits form the foundation of our life. So if you could point to one thing you do day in and day out that you feel contribute the most to your overall health, well-being, and happiness, what would that be?
Meditate every morning. I have a morning routine that consists of about 6 things, but meditation has been one thing that I do not miss.
Nice, man. I love it. I've wanted to be the person who meditates every day. I've had spurts of areas where I do it consistently, but I've never been 100% consistent. That's a goal of mine. I respect you for that one. And that moves us on to the next question. And this one is United States. It's a big place. Actually, you live in Canada, so the world is a big place. I'm going to open this one up. There's a lot of opportunity to invest out there, a lot of places to put your hard-earned money. What is one metro that you are most excited about?
Right now, I'm actually looking into Costa Rica for a couple of different reasons, but I'm looking into it for myself to own property, because if you've been following, maybe not the mainstream media, I don't know what they're telling, but there's some craziness going on in the world right now. So just looking to protect myself and my family and be able to go somewhere if need be. So Costa Rica is a place that we're looking into, but it's also, we've ran numbers on some real estate there, and from a vacation rental side, the numbers look fantastic. So excited about what's going on there and making some good connections there for some new developments that are happening.
Nice, man. I love it. I have a question about that. I've always been interested in Costa Rica. Just give me like your standard single family in maybe San Juan. What would something like that cost?
I haven't looked into like what the older houses. My partners were looking into some of the research, but I know like a new development that we're looking into right now, a 3-bedroom in a gated community is going for $369 US.
Oh, it's not too bad.
And, rentals are going for anywhere from $250 to $500 a night. Right. Wow. So, you get your money back pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. That is insane. All right. And that moves us to the very last question. This one is for the listeners. You've given us a lot of good advice. I'm sure people want to reach out there, maybe some builders out there to learn about sustainable building. So what is the best way for them to reach out and say hi?
Best place is go to consciousbuilderacademy.com. If you just want to learn about all the projects that we're doing and learn about building science, you can check us out on YouTube. Just search The Conscious Builder. We'll pop up. We got weekly videos there and all sorts of stuff that we give away for free.
Perfect. The Conscious Builder Academy, you said?
Yeah, that's the website, consciousbuilderacademy.com.
Perfect. Conscious Builder Academy. I will put that in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Casey, just go ahead and click a little more in the description. It'll pull down the full description in there. You can see Casey's link. Click that and say hi. So Casey, thank you very much for hopping on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Gabe.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Other than that, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and were able to pull some actionable advice that you can go home with and apply to your own investing business. Before you go, I have a gift for you. If you're a new investor looking to get started or an established investor looking to take your business to the next level, I've created an ebook just for you available on the website. This ebook will cover how I was able to create both active and passive income in real estate with very little money to start with. In it, I will address the 3 most often cited obstacles new and veteran investors run into by showing you how to find a deal that's actually a deal, how to finance that deal with little to no money down, and how to exit a deal for maximum value. And if you get the ebook today, I'm going to bury you in bonuses, 7 of them to be exact. First, you'll get the off-market lead generation blueprint, which will take you through the exact systems and processes we use to generate off-market leads like clockwork, which is the most important skill when it comes to creating real wealth in real estate.
Then you'll get the A to Z REI systems and vendors guide, which will allow you to peek under the hood of our business and see the exact tools and systems and even the vendors we use to grow our business. After that, you will get the top 100 best performing keywords pack, which will give you the exact keywords we use to target leads online and generate leads without having to lift a finger. Next, you'll get the contracts bundle for wholesaling and renting real estate, which will give you access to all of the contracts we use in the field to execute all types of transactions. After that, you'll get the Investor's Quick Analysis Calculator and Offer Tool, which will allow you to quickly calculate whether a deal is an actual deal and will allow you to create an offer automagically from those calculations. Next up, we'll give you the Investor's Daily Success Tracker, which is a tracker you can use to ensure you are taking the right actions day in and day out to reach your financial goals in real estate. And finally, you will get the Wholesaler's Template for Quick Assignment Cash, which will give you the templates we use to present our wholesale deals professionally and efficiently to our buyers. I know that is a ton of things to say. I'm glad you were able to stick with it. So you'll get both the ebook and all of those 7 free bonuses when you download the ebook today. All we charge is the admin cost to run the show. So if you are interested in the ebook and the bonus bundle, head on over to the website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Click on Get the Ebook Bundle at the top of the page and take advantage of that deal. With that housekeeping item covered, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day and even better week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.